The Third Servile War, presented by Yasmin Farzana and narrated by Saif Mallah. The Third Servile War, also known as the Gladiator Revolt or the Spartacus War, was in 73 BCE. This was the last of three different wars made by slaves in Roman Empire to try and free themselves. However, this war was more unique in particular because it was done by gladiators. Gladiators were exceptional men who were enslaved to do battle in the arena for the Roman entertainment. These gladiators were put in schools where they were forced to train and fight each other to the death. Capua was home to one of the most finest arenas in Rome. Therefore, many powerful gladiators lived there, including Spartacus, the leader of the gladiator revolt. Capua was right in the middle of Italy. That means when Spartacus and his fellow gladiators escaped the gladiator school, they had an extremely long way to go before they could find freedom. Let's talk about the leader of the gladiators. Spartacus was a Thracian mercenary who served the Roman army but deserted them afterwards and then captured again and forced to serve as a gladiator. Spartacus was a master tactician, and his charisma allowed many slaves to break their bonds and join his forces in order to win their freedom. Due to his victories, his power, and charisma, Spartacus was able to get many more slaves to join his ranks, including the powerful Crixus and Onomaeus, who would then become leaders of the revolt as well. He also got many slaves who were born into slavery to take up arms with him. What started off as only 70 escaped gladiators quickly amassed into thousands of slaves joining Spartacus's army in order to take up arms against the Romans. With the ranks quickly rising in his army, Spartacus needed a plan. Therefore, he decided to go to Sicily, where the First and Second Servile Wars took place but failed. He wanted to try and get the slaves there to try and revolt one more time to boost up his numbers. The gladiator army decided to settle in a strong base in Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii because Spartacus knew this would be the high ground and he had a vantage point over the Roman army of 3,000 which were coming to suppress the revolt. When the army arrived, Spartacus had the master plan of sliding down the mountain with ropes and flanking the army and destroying them entirely. After the first army were defeated, another one came and take its place, led by Senator Verinius. However, they were still struck down by Spartacus's army. After those two victories, Spartacus's rank swelled even more to a number of massing over 120,000 slaves. However, Spartacus's army began to split because there was one side that wanted to pillage and destroy Rome, while the other wanted just to be free from it. The people who wanted to destroy Rome were led by Crixus. Marcus Licinius Crassus was the richest man and politician in the entire Roman Republic. He was also a master tactician as well as Spartacus and took advantage of the split, completely destroying Crixus's army. His tactics in making sure his warriors were more afraid of him than Spartacus was the tactic of desolation, where 1 in every 10 Romans were beaten to death by their army if they were a coward and fled in battle. Spartacus decided to follow in Crixus's footsteps and instead of fleeing Rome, decided to try and take over, going back south. Unfortunately for Spartacus, Crassus's army converged with Pompey and completely wiped out the rest of the slave rebellion. In order to celebrate this victory, Crassus decided to have 6,000 slaves crucified on the main road to Rome. The revolution is interesting in the fact that such a small number of just poor gladiator slaves were able to make such an impact on a huge empire known as Rome.